Okay, I'm ready to start, but there is some
Um,
background noises, so if you can just mute Dr. Jin.
yes, I will mute myself. Then,
Okay, so we are here to understand about audit and inspection, specific on pharmacovigilance audits and inspections. So we also call it as a risk-based approached audits and inspection. So we'll understand in a very simple terminologies this particular forum on audits because uh, the audits part and inspection is something which is systematic approach and overview of the entire PV system on the operation level. So for that, the perspective need to understand PV at all levels. It's not just one part of the PV. The perspective need to have a basic and a core knowledge at all levels of the PV. So I'll try to make it, understand in a very layman word so that it is something which is easily uh, accessible to understand for you. So what's an audit? What is an audit? If we say it is like in simple language, it's an systematic independent examination. It's an overview of activities to determine whether the evaluated activities were performed according to requirements. So, uh, the regulatory, the regulations, they need certain compliance, they need certain standards, they need certain adherence to the process. What is that now? They need that whatever services are executing on the business level, on the process level, by the required company or individual organization, they do it as per what is standard per the regulation. Just give me one. So, in that perspective, they have uh, proposed a program which is a systematic approach and overview for examination and looking into the things from third eye perspective. So in that way, that is an audit which is basically as per the guidelines of good pharmacovigilance practices. Module 3 speaks about pharmacovigilance inspections, and Module 4 tells about pharmacovigilance audits. These modules are regarded good pharmacovigilance practice, which is European guidelines based from European Union, and they have fixed 16 different modules on PV for executing different PV related activities. So this 3 and 4 tells about audits and inspections. Now, what's the basic difference between if I say audit and inspection? So inspection is always from a regulatory perspective. The local regulations, the international regulations. So the regulatory inspectors, they will come and they will inspect you. In that particular activity, it is nowhere an audit. They are called as inspectors. Their activity is called as an inspection, right? And it is more higher level in compared to an audit. Whereas Audit is basically a chance, an opportunity, and there is always a certain buffer time to enhance, to improvise your process if there is certain loopholes or gaps or non-compliance to the issue. And that's why regulatory has also proposed that before they come, because they can come at the final end checking your process. So they have proposed that there should be audits, which should be yearly once or yearly twice as per the requirement of the business unit, as per the scope of the business unit. So that's why the auditor will comes, and here the activity is presented from the auditors, and they will look into everything from a third eye perspective. They will look into every documents, every prospective requirement, activities, services which you have been doing, and they will detect the loopholes, the observations, the findings, obviously, and also they will give you ample time to uh, correct and to basically make changes to those gaps, so that the final inspectors, which is always from the regulatory end, goes smoothly for the entire business. That's why big companies, big pharmaceutical associations, they do uh, believe in conducting audits. It's a 5 year, as per European guidelines, it's 5 year risk-based approach audit. Every 5 years, they fixed a audit period where internally and externally audit should be there. And these audit reports are saved in their record so that they can be presented in final inspections. So this is a risk-based audit which is goes on in the 5 year term period, where to implement different regulations, guidelines, and to basically detect the loopholes and requirements. So in that perspective, why perform PV audits? We need to perform PD audits, as I already explained. It is in compliance to the company procedures. You are doing something, okay, you are doing it, but whether you are doing it correct, okay, doing it correct. If you are doing it correct, you are doing it correct as per whose reference? It is your own personal reference or your reference for the standards, which is local reference or global reference. So those are something called standard procedures. If you are doing it correct, but correct as per whom? So if you are compliant to these things, that is one of the things or main purpose to check in the audit. Two, they are the people who are basically the first hand team before the inspectors come, so they come on behalf of the company. Yes, so the auditors, yes, they are external parties, they are vendors, they are someone who are hired by the company, either for a fixed contract period or full time period, whatever. But they are not belonging, they are not someone who belong from the company. Obviously, they should be from the third party vendor. They should be some from external parties who are not associated with the company to whom being audited, at least, or not been served in that present company for in a gap of at least 3 to 5 years. So suppose a employee has worked in that organization and left the organization just 2 years. Same employee cannot audit that organization. So there should be a gap of 3 to 5 years for that auditor to be able to audit that particular audit organization. Evolving regulatory requirements. So that is a regulatory requirement need to check. Internal requirement of risk. Risk is always there. So if there is a business, some other risk is there, and we can assure that if risk is somewhere there, there is scope of improvement also. So if there is no errors, no findings, no risk, then you are doing something which is might not be as per the standards on the market. So if there is something which is a risk associated, if there is a finding associated, then only there is a way of chance or opportunity of improvement. So that is something we need to detect the risk essential. Quality improvements. Yes. So every business relies on quality pillars. If there is no quality in that business, no business can sustain and retain in the market. So yes, the quality management system, QMS system, which is basically the principal requirement of the audit. So this audits helps ensure the companies meet their obligations to report adverse events, conduct post-marketing surveillance, comply with PV guidelines, any type of non-compliance, non-adherence, any type of activities which is not going as per the standard requirements. So that is the main objective of the audit process level to check for every business unit. Hopefully you're able to follow me, everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are different types of audits actually, and it entirely depends on the scope. So a company will always send a request to an auditor. The big pharmaceutical companies who are hiring the vendors, the CROs, the individual contractors as auditors, they will send a request of an audit. And in that request, they will specify the scope of the audit, whether they need a global PV audit, that is a process level operational audit, which is like end-to-end checking of entire unit, whether or it is something which is on the small scale level, which can be on the distributors, the MH holders, the affiliates. I just told, I think in the ICSR management, they are the associated one-fourth partner of the parent company. They are not actually partners. They are the members associated with the parent company who are helping the parent company to sell, distribute, market, exhibit, maintain quality of the product in different geographical locations, and they are called as affiliates, subsidiaries, market associate partners, etc. The main accountability lies with the parent company, but they are just the associate subsidiaries. And sometimes the auditor gets a request from the main parent company to audit this particular one-fourth parties in different geographical locations. So yes, there's a difference between all these types of audits, and it's a time limit also. When it comes to global PV audit operation level, it's a very lengthy process which is executed in 3 to 5 days. Yes, 3 to 5 days. Each day it can be 7 to 8 hours, which is basically the auditor need to invest. So global PV audits are operation levels, checking from the quality management system to entire of their computer validations like the laptops, the databases, the technical part they are using to their facilities, business unit, their everything's which is basically disaster recovery, their signal detections, aggregate reports, their how they are aligned with file retention, trainings, how they're aligned with maintaining the literature monitoring. So everything starting from safety case processing, expedited reportings, signal detections, aggregate reports, literature monitoring, QPPV. Now, what is QPPV? Anybody heard of this QPPV or knows the full form of this? What is QPPV? Okay, QPPV is qualified person for pharmacovigilance activity. So it's a qualified he or she is the qualified personality. One QPPV is entitled to handle at the same time different entities or business units in that particular geographical locations, and is basically medically and healthcare professional qualified, and he's or she is able to handle the different pharmacovigilance services as a mediator to the different other regulations. So the auditor will check the QPPV person if the local regulations is actually has a scope for appointment of QPPV, because some country does not appoint QPPV. So if they have, who is that person and what are the roles, responsibilities, what are the different documents they follow, how compliant are the company maintaining communications and or intimations with QPPV, what are the roles QPPV is entitled to, and various things they will check in detail. Apart from that, the company procedures, standard operating procedures, that is your SOPs, different work instructions, training guidelines, the qualifications of the staff who are handling the PV services, the CV, the JDs, everything will be in detail checked from first to the last part of the entire business, starting from their metrics, their compliance, their business revenue, their cost, which has been getting yearly cost, how much benefit they are from the client. So every agreement, starting from the service agreements to the business service, everything they will check in detail on the global PV audits. And it depends if the parent company needs the auditor to execute these global PV audits. And depending on the duration, the agenda, the requirement, the cost, everything will be different here. Okay, then comes the small level audits, which are company affiliates, marketing license, and MH audits, which are on the small level. So the every one-fourth partners of the parent company, which are called these affiliates and distributors, they have certain level of agreement with the parent company. This agreement will say what type of services they are entitled to. Suppose there is an agreement between for example, just name a company, BMS, Bristol Myers Squibb, BMS in associated with, for example, Addis Global. So they have an agreement for management of database, management of exchange of safety information, and processing of the data, and internal communications on medical inquiries, product complaints, uh, all this type of sales, distributions, marketing, etc. So their audit scope is that much only. The auditor will, in that perspective, will check the SDA, and they will check, okay, the SDA says that they are involved in services of exchange of ICSR information, exchange of regulatory communications, selling, distribution, apart from that, training. So only those things will be focused on the audit. So it depends, entirely depend on the scope and the requirement of particular company, what they are doing. And for that, the SDA, which is Service Data Agreement, needs to be very much updated with the parent company, because that is the base of the audit, and that is the proof that you have been doing things as per the requirement. So company affiliates primary focus on local PV responsibility. Suppose I'm auditing a particular company XYZ in China. And in China, I need to get the subsidiary, check the local responsibility of PV in that particular company in China territory or Taiwan territory, which is close neighboring states. So in that, I will just check their scope of sales, product qualities, regulatory communications, ICSR management, medical information, etc. I'll not check other things which is not mentioned in the scope. Similarly goes for marketing license partners, affiliates, distributors, sellers, etc. So it entirely depends on the scope which the auditor will check. They will perform independently by the company, depends on the service data agreements and the requirement from the parent company, which have hired the main auditor. Okay, now let's come how this audit happens. You might have got a particular idea of what is actually an audit. Okay, is it clear till here? Able to follow?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in the audit perspective, or if it is an inspection perspective also, there is something called a flow chart. So it happens not in a 1 or 2 day. The entire flow charts from planning, execution to closing, it's a matter of 1 to 2 months, because it doesn't happen in 1 or 2 day after just pronouncing audit and it gets invoiced tomorrow. No, it happens on a complete strategy planning. First of all, there is a request from the parent company to the main auditor who has been hired for execution of audit. Now, the auditor will check which particular dates he or she is available. And that availability he or she will cascade to the company which needs to be audited. Again, the company availability is also important. As an auditor, we cannot impose that, okay, I am present on this date, you need to be present. No, we cannot impose that. We have to ask mutual availability of the auditors as well as the auditees. And that is something called planning. When there is a mutual planning agreement on the dates, that is where the preparation phase starts. The preparation phase will start just 15 to 18 days after the email communications where it says this particular date is feasible for both the stakeholders. The preparation phase is something drafting the audit agenda. Audit agenda is prepared from the auditor who will prepare a particular flow chart based on what things he or she needs to check on what particular timing and what is the program. Like every, suppose you are going for any program, they give you a timetable from this to this time, this particular activity will happen. Again, there is a small break on this between, then again it will be projected from this to this time. And the auditor also will tell who are the presentees during. So the people who are going to be interviewed, the list of those people will be sent to the auditor prior. So auditors will place the names of those interviewees who were going to present in the particular session. So this all happens in the agenda. In the preparation phase, the auditee is also need to send the complete list of documents which the auditor will request, because on just in 1 or 2 days, the auditor cannot review all the 100 pages documents which is the company is doing. It is impossible, right? So it starts from certain period of time. So all the pre-request audit documents are being asked from the auditor to the auditee. They'll take some time and they will just settle and organized all their documents, and in a very confidential platform they will share their documents to the auditor, looping the parent company, to which everyone, the main parent company who is basically wants the audit to be conducted. So that is the time period where the auditor one by one will review all the things. This is still the planning and preparation phase going on. Yes, the auditor audit date is fixed, but it is time to be executed till, I think, 45 days, 30 to 45 days is the time limit which is been given, and where it can be little lesser, but not like 1 week or 10 days just after the intimation the audit happens. This type of activity happens in inspection in a very short interval of time. The regulatory inspectors, like, there will be a communication from the FDA via the parent company. The parent company will receive an invitation from the FDA and they will just cascade the same invitation to the audit, that there will be a very, very urgent FDA inspection going on in the next 12 days. That happens in inspection because they will not give you ample time. Why? Because they already has projected audit for that. Audit has given you ample time for planning, preparation, execution, and everything they expect to sort out. And now the inspectors need to come. So for the inspection part, the time duration for the planning preparation is not so subtle and it can happen in a very short period of time. So after the planning preparation, where the auditor will prepare the agenda, get the agenda approved from the main parent company, and then sent to the audit, the auditor will review again, because their comfort, their feasibility is also that. Do not think that auditors or inspectors are like someone who just impose decisions. No, it doesn't happen in that way. It happens in mutual agreement from both the stakeholders. Auditor, even though they are, yes, they are external and they are someone invigilators who are going to check your activities, but they are ample approachable to ask you everything from their your comfort level, obviously. Then after certain period of time, the conduct of the audit happens. That is that audit day, which is going to happen. So it depends, either it's a remote audit. If it's a remote audit, you will be connected via any type of portals like Webex, Teams, and the entire audit happens on online mode. And also it can be on physical mode where the auditor visits the particular site which needs to be audited. So it again depends on the parent company whether they need a remote audit or they need a physical audit. The or conduct is basically the audit execution day, which is again decided prior. It is 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, or 5 days. So on the conduct part, the auditor is the boss. You need to understand, and the representative, the auditees, the company who is being audited, they have to be very approachable, very humble to the auditor, presenting him or her the every requirement which he or she needs, maybe the additional documents, the interview questions, detailed representation of whatever activities. So in the conduct day, whatever documents you have submitted, it is already been reviewed from the auditor. Now they will cross question you. Okay, it's been written in this part. For example, this SOP tells that you are doing this activity on so and so method. So they will ask you to project this on live demonstration. Please show me how you project this on so and so methodology. So whatever you are telling, you have submitted in your documents. And now it's the time to check and aligning the requirement you are doing it correct or not. So that is the conduct, which is little serious. Yes. So it is basically happens with the kickoff meeting where the auditees will basically introduce themselves. The auditor will also introduce him or her to the company. Then there will be interviews. Basically, just 1 minute. Give me time. So audit planning and preparation, which I told that it is basically the phase. So agendas will, the format of agendas might be from the auditor side, or basically it is the requirement, as per the requirement from the parent company, they will present a template how to prepare. But there can be different time gaps. Maybe the auditor is in a different country, the auditees are in a different country, which usually happens as my personal experience. And the auditors need to fix different time zones as per the requirement, because Indian time zone, IST time zone can be different from GMT and other European time zones. So in basically, the auditor need to have a basic idea. So another qualification to being an auditor, you need to have a detailed, subtle information on regulations. Yes, what different company regulations, different countries regulations, local regulations, etc. If I'm going to audit Japan, I need to have a detailed view of the GPP regulations, European regulations, ICH regulations, plus PMDA regulations, which is Japan authority. Accordingly, if it is China, it is NMPA, etc. If it is India, I need to have a CITESCO regulations very much thorough. So likewise, the regulations need to be in mind of the auditor, because that's how, that's the basis on which you are asking someone to be correct or not correct. So it depends. And also the time zones, like which country is a different time zone from other country, like India is different a time zone from China, how different they are. You can just find out in a world time map also. So that is also a very detailed thing which the auditor need to have, because they handle global audits, right? So that is something which is presented in the agenda, the timings, the zones, the geographical locations, etc. The conduct is something I have explained you. Everything, every particular activity which the company is doing, started from ICSR management, PV processing, regulatory communications, uh, business continuity handling. Business continuity is if there is an earthquake or there is something, and a complete shutdown of the country. Like in some, I think in just 1 or 2 years back, Sri Lanka had an economic lay down and complete shutdown of the country, where there was no electricity, a complete economic drop down of their own country. There is a scarcity of water, food, right? There was, so in that perspective, what is they do to manage the PV, because PV is something cannot be uh, compromised, right? It is something related to the safety of the patient. So in that perspective, what are your backups you are handling, or you have built up, or you are maintaining in place if there is complete shutdown of your system, internet's data backup storage is all crashed down, market is crashed down, what you do in that time? So that is something business should continue. So in that perspective, they will check every detail, the auditor will check every detail, and they will tally with the things which the document says. If the document says something, they need to have an evidence of that. If they're doing it something, they need to have an evidence, and evidence are not verbal, it need to have a proper evidence in complete documentations. So everything happens as per the agenda, and then there is a closing and exit meeting. What happens, it is like the entire feedback of the audit. Here the auditor is going to highlight the observations, the findings, the everything which he or she might have noticed. This, please keep in mind, this is not the final audit report. This is just the highlights of the particular execution conduct of the audit. And the auditor responsibility is to highlight. He or she cannot keep anything hidden in mind that, okay, I'm not going to give it now, I'm going to surprise it in my audit report, just uh, break the ball in my audit report. No, that is something which is basically, you can say, a mistake from the auditor perspective. Auditor need to be very transparent, very approachable, and very humble to whatever he or she has been observed, and highlights in the closing meeting, in the preliminary results. It is not the final results. They, something can be add on, something can be again, it can be reverted, but it is just the highlights of the things. Obviously, based on the highlighting results, the audit team can put their explanations. Okay, you have observed it, but we have an evidence on that. Maybe there was a misquoted information which we are not able to show you, and we can give you the evidence. So there is also an opportunity where the auditee can explain and revert the things done from that point of view. So that is something on the audit. After the audit conduct is done, the highlights of the meeting will go to the parent company also, because the company needs to know what is been done on that day, rather than after 1 month when the audit report will come. So everything should be in loop of the parent company, and parent company, if it's any type of observation and finding, the parent company should know. Audit report, where the auditor is in charge of audit report. It's a detailed 50 to 60 pages report which the auditor prepares. It's a very concise, logical, precise writing. It's one of a very concise report which needs to be based on logical facts. You cannot write anything which is hypothetical or anything which is not real. It is completely based on what you have done, what you have executed, and what you have seen. And here also the auditor need to present evidences. Suppose he is telling or she is telling that there is a loophole in particular process. Okay, you need to provide the evidence where the loophole, how the loophole has been detected, and what is the particular evidence, document reference number. Suppose I've seen one document where it says the particular SOP title, there is a misquoted title ID, and this, there is a spelling mistake might be. So I need to mention the document ID, SOP ID, and the particular section where there is a misinterpretation. This much evidence will be presented in the audit report. How you have quoted your findings, the auditor will also need to give ample evidence to justify the audit report. We cannot just write it for the sake of writing. So there will be three categories of finding, which is critical, major, minors, and there is something called comments or recommendations. Critical is something which can majorly impact the business. Anything which is a very huge deficiency in the PV system, and which can impact adversely the right, safety, and well-being of the patients, potential risk to the entire business. One example of critical finding, let me tell you, for example, suppose it says the training, the PV services need to be executed after there is a basic training on adverse event reporting to all the staffs. And this training should be completed after 15 days of hiring the new employee, and the existing employee also should be complete in this time frame. That's how the global guideline, local guidelines is. But when I review, I see there is no evidence of the training document being done, adverse event reporting, and pharmacovigilance awareness. But still, they're doing the services. So that is, as per me, is a critical. If there is no authenticity of the training being done, if there is no evidence of the training being done, there is how there is an appropriateness or validation of the system is doing it correctly. How I can ensure the PV system is not in risk, because the people who are doing it correctly, they do not have any basic training of adverse event reporting, neither PV awareness. So still they are doing the work. So it permeates a critical, and it's basically impact the right safety and well-being of the patient. Major is like partially it can affect the right safety well-being, but still there are scope of improvement. Critical is like something it can, then and there it is a very high threat and it can impact the business to shut down. Major is there is still scope and there is opportunity you can improvise. Major, I would say, something like the SOPs, there is an SOP which needs on internal audits. Suppose, for example, internal audits requirement should be there. Internal audits are again within the company. They will just take the help of other quality people who are handling other business to check their process, or they within the same business unit they will hire quality auditors who are quality control department of the business, and they do internal audits just to self check and self inspect everything is okay. So that is not been done, but the SOP says internal audit check should be there. Even though I have detected there is no major issue, no critical, and everything is working fine, but you are not doing something which is written on the process. That is a major. But there are scope that you need to do it and get it corrected. There is major because till now there is no anything which is a critical or major finding and everything is working fine. But there is no guarantee that it don't happen in the future, right? So it is major, that's why. But there is a scope of improvement. Minor is something which will not impact the right safety. Something, for example, the documents, whatever documents they are doing, they need to be archived, they need to be retained, and they need to be retained in a very password protected file so that it is not accessible for all, or in a physical file which is fireproof, or it is something waterproof where it doesn't get damaged. So might be I've seen that the archival part is not so aligned, like they have kept in the fireproof, waterproof, however the electronic documents is not password protected, and there is something chances that it can be accessible. So in that case I'll put it minor. But in some cases, some clients, even if I approach it's a minor, they want it to be major, because as per them, it is something which is impactly. But again, from the auditor point of view, I'll say it's a minor because it is not affecting the patient safety. It is the archival of the documents they have maintained, they have retained it. Only it is not password protected. Yes, it's a issue on the confidential and they need to rectify. It's a minor finding. And recommendation is that my suggestions, I have seen the improvise process and I have seen that there is something which need to be improved. There's something which needs to be uh, placed or which need to be implemented. And in that process, the company can get more business. So that is some recommendations or comments the auditor will put. And that doesn't comes under any observations. But observations are three category: minor, critical, major, and minor. And the auditor has to present which error is in which category. Not only that, if I'm presenting that, okay, this is a critical error, I need to mention the reference. Like suppose I have mentioned about the training part. So I'm mentioning this training is missed adverse event reporting and it's a critical finding. So in that perspective, this critical finding is under which reference section? Like it is taken from GPB modules, section B point 1.2 or IRB section 1.2 or any local regulation. So I need to mention the exact reference of this audit, which is been fixed from the global regulations or local regulations. It's not just I mentioned critical and it is the work is done. Every finding need to be proofread with evidence and references. Then it goes with corrective action and preventive action, which is CAPA, which is always from the auditee, they will give a corrective and preventive action. Okay, these have been done. Now, what approach they will do to correct it and what approach they will do to prevent it. That is something they have to project whether to correct the issue, and also they have to project to some ideas so that doesn't happen in the future, preventive issue. So this table will be prepared from the auditing after certain period of time, 15 to 18 days after the report is submitted, and then the auditor reviews kappa is satisfactory or not, kappa is as per the requirement or not, it is something which resolves the issue or not, and every kappa is closed or not. So every kappa should be specific, achievable, time-driven, and accountable. You cannot, the auditee cannot mention some out of blue kappa that is not achievable. That is again not accepted. So everything should be specific, achievable, time-driven. It completes within specific period of time and accountable. People are accountable for that. And they need to give the name of the person who will complete that. In that way, kappa planner will be prepared and it is again reviewed from the auditor till this process continues till all the kappas are closed, and there is a follow-up communications happens in this time frame of 15 to 18 days between the auditor, auditee, and the parent company till all the issues are closed and final everything is signed. So audit follow-up and closure. Till the closure is done, it is audit is not completed. So it need to be an from the planning phase to the closure, the time limit is fixed. Like this day the conduct will happen, this day the report submission will happen, this day the kappa submission will happen, and this till this day the closure should happen. If anybody is not following this, they are also non-compliance. If auditor is not following, auditor is non-compliance. If the auditee is not following, they are non-compliance. Right? Anybody can be non-compliance. So we need to very much adhere to the timelines. That is very much mandatory. Okay, inspections, it is, I already told you, these inspections are from the regulatory. Other things all remain the same, but inspection happens short-term intervals or in a surprising visits or without notice also inspectors will come. Other things are all same. They will check the entire process. They will prepare the agenda or the agenda will be given from the parent company and they will check. The interviews will happen, document reviews will happen, and everything's as the auditors looks, the inspectors will look into. So that is something which is basically there. There are different types of inspections are system inspections, so which are again very detail and process level. Product related pharmacovigilance inspections, they are basically related to documentation, particular part section of the audit. Routine inspections are part of the inspection program, like they have fixed an contract, like every 6 months there will be a routine inspection to the company. For cause, like there is a risk sometimes it comes in news, there is a manufacturing defect. Just few days back, some company, USA, one company has a manufacturing defect on one of the product, and it was highlighted. So in that way, FDA will come and check what was the defect. So for cause inspection, as per requirement, it will. Pre-authorized are basically to verify the accuracy and successful implementation of the existing. Like already a prior inspection has happened, and it is something projected different agenda and finding. So again, there will be a revised pre-authorized inspection to check it has been done and completed. So types of infection as per the regulatory. So these things are just to read, I think, perspective on what are, just 1 minute. Just do the. Okay, I'm not reading just slide to slide because it is something which is not doesn't looks good. It is something to you to make understands, and I feel that slide to slide reading is not my approach. So it is already written, and I guess the slides will be available to you, or I don't know what is the process. But end of the day, if the slides are with you, you can just read because it's part of a general English which has been written. The thing is that you need to understand the concept, and then if you read it through, you can understand it yourself. And that's why I don't go slide to slide and read it through the lines. So notification of inspection. Auditor inspection, auditor notification, I told you that happens with the mutual agreement. But notification of inspection, the MH or PV service provider, that is the company you need to be audited, will generally be notified 4 to 6 weeks prior to the proposed inspection date. The HPRA reserves, that is the authority, reserves the right to provide shorter notice. I told you shorter notice or without notice. That is very short notice. If I say it's a 15 days, it is still a short notice because there are hell lot of things which need to be arranged before a audit. It doesn't everything, people usually do the things casually, but when some inspectors and auditors are coming to check, you cannot present those casual things to them. It need to be in aligned. Otherwise, there will be a very deadly red marks on your progress chart report. So that things need to be aligned. So right to provide shorter notice, conduct an unannounced inspection. Unannounced is they will not tell the any proposed date or something. They will say just we will just trying to inspect remotely in a matter of 2 to 4 days. We will just connect with you checking these particular documents. That is unannounced. So inspection plan is usually provided to the inspector maximum of 2 weeks in advance. That should happen, but it depends on the alignment. Maybe the company is rated very poorly and FDA has a strong eye on that company. So they will do these things just to make that company degrade to another level. Because if it comes in the warning letter of FDA or MHRA, then it's a gone case. So that is something, that's why auditing is there. Not to be worried. It is doesn't happen subtly. It's basically the auditing is there. That's why audit is full plan, legit, and it happens in an ample period of time. And if your reports are very clear, that inspection is smoothly going to happen. And if there is no auditing, no self-inspection, no internal checks, then it's a gone case, which gives details of the time inspections, activities to be planned, conducted, general ideas covered during the inspections. So list of things again, which I have explained, it depends on the scope requirement, which they are going to check. Okay, able to follow till here? Any questions you have for me? I'm audible, right? Able to follow?
Yes, yes. I think
Yes,
they
ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Okay, inspection conduct. At the start of an inspection, the inspectors conduct an opening meeting, which gives an opportunity for the inspectors to provide introductions, explain the planned conduct of the inspection. It is same as for the audit, only that the thing is it is made from the more higher profile people. Inspection is directly from the regulatory, and there is no chance of anything which is loopholes. Everything should be in place, and they won't give any second chance to rectify it at that point of time. So other things remains the same, which has been happened in the audits. They will explain the planned conduct of the inspection, gain a better understanding of the organization be inspected. PV inspections are mixtures of interview sessions, document review, facility tour. So everything happens in our own way, which is mentioned in the agenda already in the plan of the particular inspection or audit, and it happens. It will not happen out of syllabus. It is already decided what is going to happen, who is going to take over the responsibility, and what is the time limit, and everything is going to happen per that agenda only. Inspection report outcome, it is similar like how I explained the audit reports, kappa and closures, but it is from the higher authority and the timelines will be different. Yes, because audit is little bit still internal part, and it is that is basically from the regulatory. So the timeline will be little shorter and little different. And every country has a different timeline. I cannot say if it is basically Philippines, it will be similar for Germany also. So it's a different timeline based on the local regulations. So some of the practices we should follow: relax, don't panic, because if you're doing it correct, you do not need to panic. Even if you're not doing it correct, the best thing is just showcase them and transparent and be humble to them that this is, yes, we are defaulters, we have something we are not doing it correct, and we agree on acknowledge on that, and we are ready to improvise. If you hide it, if you misguide, misquote, misinterpret, or be not ethical or truthful, the auditors, inspectors, they can take it very easily. Don't think because the one who are coming as an auditors or an inspectors, they are not freshers, first of all. They are one people who have a core basic on that profile. They have a hand-on grip on that profile at least for 10 to 15 years, and that's why they are into that position. And if you're telling that, okay, these things should be done like this, they will listen to you, but they know how this thing should be done. And there is no way that they do not know the local or global, because before any auditor comes or any inspectors comes, they do a very detailed homework of local regulations. They are basically skilled on that particular country regulations, and that's why they are here. So we need to be very polite, cooperative, confident, professional, and not misguide anything to the auditor. Escort the inspector and auditor at all times. That is, you need to be escorting them. They need to go for a facility tour. They need to go for anything where the documents are being stored. So you cannot tell, okay, it is in that side, you can go and check. No, that is a very inappropriate way. You need to escort them and help them at all possible time. Don't underestimate the amount of questions and paper involved. So they can ask you a lot of questions paper, and that is a part of their profile. Do not think that, or they may ask you few questions, and you might think that, okay, just few questions, I think the audit or the inspection went well. Within that few questions or paper, they can check whatever they require. Keep track of all questions, request, whatever been projected. Ask for clarification if something is not clear in any, and I would suggest this is for any particular forum, interviews or sessions or webinars. If something is not clear, there is no guilt to asking it, to understand it further, or to ask that it is not clear to me, it is not something I have clearly understood. If you can just go around one more time, so ask for clarification to questions or request if you do not understand. Maintain a very detailed log of all documents, questions, requests, everything which the inspector or auditor have asked. It is going to help you in the next audit or next inspection. That's why a track log of every document record need to be maintained. Initiate documents provided, reviewed, retained by the inspector. Indicate which documents. Do not just abruptly volunteer giving all the documents. Just listen to carefully, notice all the things which the auditor inspector is telling, and particularly that document only you need to project. Not unnecessary, you cannot project other things. Do not volunteer information. Suppose they have asked you some information, not give additional information which is not been asked. Or they have asked you about your manager and you are an associate on that company. You do not volunteer for your manager information. Just escort them that I'm not the right person, or I'm not the right candidate might be to give you this correct information on this. My manager would help me, and you can connect him to the your manager. So always be point to the point what are being asked and what is being required. Do not give or volunteer additional data. Clarify misunderstanding. If you think there is a misunderstanding, misquoted, do not go with the ego and attitude, because the auditor, it is in auditors and inspector hands to give you good progress mark. It is like a viva invigilators. You cannot argue with the auditors, right? Okay, you think it's a misunderstanding, you think it's a wrong approach, you have to be polite and give your justification in a professional way. Yes, the parent company, the regulations are always in loop. So if they think the auditor is also a wrong approach, they will take actions. But you cannot something argue and to start fighting with the auditor at that point of time. So do's and don'ts are those only what you need to do and what you do not need to do for an inspection or audit readiness program. So that's it, basically, in a simple perspective, rather than going on the high propaganda of this particular program, because that needs more detailed representation of the topics. But I guess that you might have understood actually what happens in the audit and what is an expectation of an auditor and an auditee. Okay, able to follow till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Miss Paramita. It's well
Thank you.
explained. Thank you so much.
Any questions further?
Yes, participants, if you have any questions, you can ask him, ask her.
No, no questions from my end, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, students.